Social media versus reality. Social media. I live in Hawaii. My life is perfect. I'm so lucky I live in Hawaii. I go surfing every day. Everything is great. Woo! Reality. I worked really hard and had to do some really terrifying things and have done some really deep inner work and had to face some really deep, scary parts of myself to now be happy and live the life that I do that's really happy and fulfilling for me. And it just so happens that I live in a beautiful place to do it. Welcome to Running in Slippers, where I am going to be talking about my book, Running in Slippers. The paperback and Kindle was published in 2022 and is available on Amazon. And the audiobook was published in 2023. It is narrated by me because I know audiobook listeners love an author narration, and it's available anywhere audiobooks are sold. And the reason I want to talk about this topic is because, number one, people assume that my life is perfect because I live in Hawaii. It is not. I have the same challenges anyone else in the world has. Maybe some of them look different. Maybe some of them are the same. I am not lucky because I live in Hawaii. I intentionally created this life, which is a huge part of this story. And I'm not happy because I live in Hawaii, because anyone who's already read this book knows that I actually struggled for a few years here, and one of the darkest moments of my entire life happened here. I am happy because of me. So the whole point of me being vulnerable in this video and my book is to dispel this social media versus reality, abstract that we all face on an everyday, because it's so easy to look at someone's life and be like, oh, they're so lucky, they have it so good, but you never know the backstory. I used to do in-person workshops here, and the exercise at the end was Instagram versus reality, where we would all show a picture. It didn't necessarily have to be Instagram, but a picture that we had somehow posted publicly, and then tell the backstory about what was really going on. And the crazy stories that I've heard, and even just looking at my own feed, like the amount of pictures where it looks like I'm all happy and everything's great, but there's like something much deeper going on in the back end. And that is true for everyone, because we are human beings and our lives are way more complex than any picture or 3-minute video that we post on social media. So this is my opportunity to talk more about that. And also, what was I going to say? Oh, so this video is for, if you have not read the book, just to give you an overview in case you would like to read more about it. Because I've noticed if you've watched any of my other YouTube videos, sometimes I'll tell a personal story and then I'll make a comment like, oh, I talk about this more in my book, Running in Slippers, but then I realized I never even really talk about this book. So this is for you if you have not already read it and you're interested in learning more, or if you've already read it, I'm also going to go deep in behind the scenes, because this book, it's pretty long. I think it's 360 pages. It's 350 pages. The original version was twice as long, and I had to edit it down for brevity, which meant I had to cut a lot out. And it wasn't to hide anything or, make it look different than it really was. It was simply for brevity. But for everything I write about in here, there is so much more to this story. So I'm also going to get into some more of the behind the scenes. So even if you've already read Running in Slippers, there is something in here for you. And I also want to talk about, before I get into it, the reason why I wrote the book, or the inspiration for the book. It came in the period after my dad died, which that's where the book starts. So we will get more into that when we get into the book. But what happened first is my boyfriend broke up with me. Then my dad passed away. So I was plummeted into this profound grief. And we live in a just get over it society. So after a few months, people just expected me to be over it. And it's like, my dad died. I am not over it, but I felt like I had to put on my happy face and pretend that everything was fine, even though everything was not fine. So inside, I was a mess. But then I would go on social media and everyone's posting the highlight reels. Even in real life, everyone else was pretending that everything was fine. So I just felt this huge disconnect between what I was feeling and what I was seeing. And I thought to myself, I cannot be the only one who's going through something hard right now. Because it's like we all go through shitty things. Why aren't we talking about it? So I had this idea. I was like, what if I write a book about my life and I only focus on the hard things? Because up to that point, my life had been a total struggle. Everything had been hard, which I played a huge role in that, which we're going to get into in the book. But I was like, what if I just wrote about all of the hard things and just be really vulnerable and upfront about this is what life is about too? But back then, I was not confident. I was not courageous. I was terrified of allowing myself to be seen. I'm still scared of allowing myself to be seen, but I can feel the fear and do it anyway. But back then it was like, oh, I can absolutely not do this. I can't put myself out there like that. It's too embarrassing. I thought my mom would never speak to me again, which there was a fallout with my mom, but I'm going to leave that till the end because that's a whole separate story. But finally, and I'll tell that story at the end. I finally had the idea to write it, but I finally got the kick in the butt that I needed to actually start writing it and publishing it. And the funny thing is, vulnerability works the opposite way that we think it does, because all of my worst mistakes are in this book, the worst decisions, everything. And I was so terrified of being criticized. I thought people were going to be like, you're such an idiot. You're so stupid. You wouldn't believe the number of people who reached out to me. And I'm talking complete strangers who have reached out to me to say, like, it's relatable. Like, this exact same thing happened to me too. And I'm going to point out, because there's specific things in the book, and as I go through the chapters, I'll point out where someone reached out to me and said, this exact same thing happened to me. Or there's certain chapters that were fan favorites and people were drawn to them, and they were fan favorites because they were so relatable. And the craziest thing is, in my opinion, they're the most train wreck parts of my story. So I think even though it's a story very specific to me, the entire point of writing this book is connection through vulnerability, because again, vulnerability works the opposite way that we think it does. And even though this story is specific to me, I think you will see yourself in many parts of it. So the secondary reason that I wrote this is so that everyone could see that they're not alone. Life is hard. Like, I will not sugarcoat that ever. And we all go through shitty things. We're just not talking about them. So this is a safe space to talk about it. So if anything resonates with you, feel free to leave a comment or reach out to me, because trust me, you are not the first and you will not be the last. So let's start having conversations about these things. And also, before I get into the book, because I feel like this is something I forget to talk about, so I made a note and I just saw it, so I wanted to get into this before I get into the chapters. The title. Okay, so I live in Hawaii, and in Hawaii, we call flip-flop slippers. So running in slippers actually means running in flip-flops. And running in flip-flops is a metaphor for life, because life and running in flip-flops, it can be adventurous, playful, and fun. It can also be difficult, scary, and painful. So, and as you will see, well, I'm sure you can apply that to your own life to know that it's true, but it's definitely true of my story and my book. And a little behind the scenes, actually, another thing about the title, this is also behind the scenes, to be honest. I had so many doubts about this title, because I was like, people aren't going to know what slippers mean. Even with the cover art being a flip-flop, I was afraid that I was going to be so criticized and people wouldn't even pick it up for that reason. I have only received one outward criticism for this, and it was on Goodreads. Someone gave me a 1-star review, and they clearly didn't even open the book, because I'm going to read the introduction for you shortly, which I think that's the only excerpt I'll read. I might change my mind later, but someone wrote, it was like this, like, mean comment about like, well, the cover clearly has a sandal, so I don't know why the title is Slippers. But it was so heartwarming because one of my readers came to my defense and was like, well, you basically didn't even read the first 2 sentences of the book. So my point is, do the scary thing, because the criticism isn't as bad as you think. I thought I was just going to have a barrage of criticisms about it. I only got one, and it wasn't even that bad. Even if my reader didn't come to my defense, it wasn't that bad, because in my mind, I'm like, they didn't even read the book, so I don't really care what they think. So point number 1, do the scary thing, because it doesn't matter what people think. And the other behind the scenes of the title is, because again, I had major doubts about using that as the title, but every time I doubted myself, I kid you not, the very next day, I would see someone running in slippers every single time. So it's like, if that is not a sign, I don't know what is. And every time I see someone running in slippers, I'm like, oh yeah, it's my book. But, so I think that's all of the pre-talk that I want to do for the book. So yes, this is, sometimes I take these to events and stuff and I autograph them, so I don't know why this one is pre-autographed. And if I do autograph it for people, it's personalized. I don't just do a boring signature like how this is. So I will jazz this up one day when I give it away. I'm also going to read the author's note. When I was a little girl, I thought that adults knew what was up. Like, maybe there's a rite of passage where you're given an instruction manual. How to be an adult, a step-by-step, easy-to-follow guide. What a hilarious realization that none of us know what the hell we are doing. This trial and error laced experience creates a roller coaster adventure through life. The ride can be fun and successful. It can also be extremely painful and ridden with mistakes. Sometimes we are the only ones who suffer from our mistakes, and sometimes we take others down with us. I'm getting emotional, and I'll explain later. As human beings, we are all flawed and we all make mistakes. That's okay, as long as we learn and grow from those experiences. That learning and growth may take time, and at any given time, we are all doing the best that we can with the tools and knowledge that we have at the moment. This is a work of nonfiction. I wrote this book from my point of view at the time the facts unfolded, not from hindsight. Many events have been consolidated and edited for brevity only. Most names and identifying pieces of information have been changed for anonymity. The reason I got emotional and still feeling a little bit emotional is because this was published in 2022, so I wrote it in 2020 and 2021. And admittedly, this author's note was written from a place of people-pleasing, because when you write a story about your own life, not only does it require being vulnerable with yourself, because again, my darkest moments, my worst mistakes, everything, it doesn't shed a good light on me at all. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. But unfortunately, there are other people who played roles in my life, and there are certain people in this book where it doesn't shed good light on them either. And I really struggled with that. I did change the names and identifying pieces of information. And ultimately how I reconciled that was, if you are behaving in a way that you wouldn't want to be published in a book, then you probably shouldn't be behaving that way. And it did make it feel somewhat more comfortable, but the hardest part was I can't change the names and identity of my family. So when it came to my family, I was putting it all out there, especially with my mom. So I almost said unfortunately, but that's where I was at the time. So this author's note was mostly written from a people pleaser perspective to soften it for anyone who read it who I didn't shed good light on, but I feel like it was especially written for my mom so that she would understand that I understood that, like, we all make mistakes, we're not perfect, and I get it. And one of the reasons I got emotional is because as I was reading this, because my bottom line, and I'll get to it later, my mom didn't understand. And as I was reading that, I got emotional because I thought to myself, and that's okay, because I understand what that author's note means, and that's all that matters. And you guys, that is what growth looks like. And that is why I do the work I do with other people. And that's why I continue to do the work on myself, because I wrote that years ago from a people pleaser mindset of needing to explain myself and justify myself. But I just read it as I know what that means, and that's all that matters. So that is growth in action. So let's get into it. Running in slippers. I will read the introduction. Oh, here's another behind the scenes. So during my writing process, I was writing things out of order. So in my documents, I would always put the date at the top. It was just for me to keep track of it. But as the editing continued and in the final stages, I just kept the dates in there. It wasn't really intentional or something I thought about a lot. I just kept them in there. But I've received a lot of feedback. People like it because they feel like it reads like a personal diary. And in hindsight, I do like it because this book covers the COVID pandemic, because even this introduction, so this jumps ahead because the chapter 1 starts in 2017, but look, January 31st, 2020. So I think that's important because even me looking at that date, it kind of brings me back to that era, because other years, like if I say 2016, you may or may not have specific memories of that year, but I think we all have very strong memories of 2020. So in hindsight, I do think it's cool that I left the dates in. So this is the introduction of Running in Slippers. January 31st, 2020. One perk about living in Hawaii is that I only wear shoes when I am working out or going out. Any other time, I wear slippers. I have lived here for just over a year now, and I'm still not used to using the word slippers to describe flip-flops, but I do everything I can to assimilate to local life, so slippers it is. Another perk about living in Hawaii is that if I want to go to the beach after work in January, I can. It's a far cry from my former Chicago life, and quite frankly, I don't miss feeling dead inside all winter with the obscenely cold wind blowing across frozen Lake Michigan. Oddly enough, I think that I still suffer from seasonal affective disorder in Hawaii, but I can't tell if I'm depressed from the shorter hours of daylight or because my life has been an uphill struggle for the better part of the past 3 years. When does this end? When will I be happy again? I've been thinking about Dad a lot lately and still have a lot of regrets. And my remote Chicago job is draining the life out of me. I feel that the new management is pushing out the old management, which I am a part of. Many key people from the old administration have been let go, and my manager, Rick, resigned last month. I set up a call next week with my new manager, Brian, to explain how valuable I am and how much I deserve a raise. I'm nervous because I feel like I'm on the chopping block anyway and will look like a fool by having the nerve to ask for a raise. If I lose my job, I'm screwed because local companies don't pay as much as my Chicago job, and the prospects for remote work are few and far between. It doesn't help that I haven't found a solid friend tribe here. Yes, I have some friends here and there, but there is a clear void of love and connection. Since I feel stressed and lonely today, I came to the beach after work to journal my feelings and relax. Leaving the beach, I see an unkempt, barefoot man with unruly, dirty blonde hair who has his eyes fiercely focused on me. I pretend to ignore him. Please don't talk to me. Please don't talk to me. He doesn't receive my subliminal message, and he speaks to me. You know what? When your girlfriend plays you, you just have to move on with your life. I don't stop walking. I intend to ignore him, but I am so dumbfounded by his uninhibited comment that I accidentally make eye contact with him. And because I have no boundaries around not engaging with him, it feels awkward not to say anything. Yes, I say. I have no other words. Plus, even though his statement should not be a hard opening with a conversation with a stranger, it was very logical. And yes, I agree that he should move on with his life. Fortunately, I still have the walking pace of a Chicagoan. Unfortunately, this dude is so intent on talking to me that he matches my pace, which might as well be sprinting in Hawaii. He raises his hand to get my attention. Not that he has to do anything to get my attention. Despite my closed-off body language, which he clearly does not know how to interpret, I haven't stopped paying attention to him since the second I noticed him. I don't even turn my head toward him, but he desperately needs me to listen, and he will not let this go. He asks, "Can I ask you a question?" No. Okay, maybe I do have some boundaries. I don't stop walking. I hope I don't have to start running because I don't want to run in slippers. With all of the hardships over the past few years, I feel like I'm running through life in slippers anyway. I'm exhausted from the struggle. When will I be happy? So I think I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to turn this into a playlist series. I have no idea how many videos this is, but this is just the beginning, and I will see you in the next video.